Okay, so as usual, we are spiritual beings in a physical body. Our thought creates reality and we're all connected. After the last video, I need to make a few comments, but look, we're spiritual beings. But this is not religious. It's just it's like I like dolls, right? I like dolls. Well, we are all dolls. But some of us are dolls that have life in them, whereas others are like dolls, like the dolls that I like to play with. Because when I was a child, I had many dolls that were given to me, by parents, etc. Some were big, most were a reasonable size. One day I was given $1 or something, and we were on holidays, and I went into a store and I bought with the $1, instead of buying my usual lollies and stuff that we normally would have bought as children, I bought a little doll. It was like that big, okay? About that big with my hands, so about 5-6 inches. Not sure how much that is in centimetres, not fully converted as you can see. But, you can see with my hands that it's like not big, like half my face at the most, probably not even that. No, not even that probably, I'm not sure. But at any rate, I'm so sorry to be so like I am, Bought a little doll, called it Lulu. Lulu was a plastic doll. Very cute. I started to love Lulu, even though it was only a plastic doll. Piece of plastic, really, fashioned in the image of a kind of cute little human. But the reason I started to love Lulu was because I started to use Lulu a bit like a ventriloquist uses a dummy. I started to infuse Lulu with my own personality and the better part of my personality, because as a child I was too shy and reserved. That's the word I was looking for in the other video that just come to me now when I said someone described me as reserved. Instead of being friendly and outgoing, I was reserved. That means you kind of hold back a bit. You're not forthcoming, And I was very reserved. Now, doesn't sound so bad now, that word. But at any rate, I infuse the doll with my personality, like a ventriloquist does with a dummy. The dummy comes to life because it has the human inside of it. And this is what I did with my little doll. I started to use it to talk like I would, except better than what I would like, because I was reserved. So the things that I would have been frightened to say, the friendliness, the outgoingness, the need for, when I was a child, the need for love, shall we say. So because I thought I was inferior and not actually able to ask for the love, or not actually able to be outgoing, shall we say, I used the doll for that purpose. Because I thought, how could anyone not like this cute little blonde-headed, blue-eyed, sweet little doll? And I thought also there was a protection element too, because the doll's doing it, not me. So it's not me as a human doing it to another human. Like if you went up to your mother or your father, it's the doll. And so if they don't really like you, they might like the doll, because you know what I'm trying to say? This is not making any sense. Oh dear. But this is what I did anyway. I don't know why I'm using this as an example. It's actually quite close to my heart in a way. The doll became me. Because although it was just a doll, a piece of plastic, something artificial. Plastic is artificial, it's not real. It was not real, it was dead. But because I put my personality, like the ventriloquist puts it into the dummy, it came to life. All of a sudden it had the life in it. Actually, it didn't do me much good, because actually even with the doll it didn't quite work. They didn't like the doll, as I remember, unfortunately. In fact, I think that's right. At the time it's like, you're being stupid, shoving this doll in our face, it's like, get away, that's worse than you. But the point is that doesn't matter, because I actually myself became confused. I myself became confused because I was lonely, and because I was feeling perhaps rejected in some way. I wasn't aware of it consciously, but I realise now. I not only put the life into the doll, but I loved the doll. I wanted other people to love the doll, but I also did love the doll. In fact, the doll became it became like my friend. Like they say, some children, if they're a bit peculiar, they have imaginary friends. Well, yeah, that was like, I never realised that, but that was actually my imaginary friend. And it was very strange. I cannot explain it, but even though I only had this doll for 2 weeks, which is interesting because, as you can well imagine, like so many of I'm laughing here, but it's actually not funny. But I can laugh about it now, 60 years later. Well, not 60, well, yeah, or getting almost like that, because I was probably about 9 or 10 years old, I would imagine. I would think that was the age, but I can't really be sure. But either way, and I'm boring is no end, I know, I'm sorry. I'm trying to make some sort of point here and I don't even know what it is. But I love the doll. And it was, I suppose, in a funny kind of way, the doll was the best of me. I was putting the best into the doll, but I'm not explaining this. And the doll came to life. And all I can say, and this, you can make of this what you will. It may not make any sense at all. It probably doesn't, but I started to love the doll. And there was kind of like a union, and I didn't feel alone. I felt the doll was my better half. And I remember holding the doll and experiencing extreme bliss, you could say. And I remember that very well. And it was the most satisfying form of bliss. Because I suppose it was an acceptance of yourself, a self-love almost. It felt quite, dare I say, almost godlike at the time. I wouldn't have thought so at the time because I was a child, but it was like a type of extreme peace in that moment. I can still remember that moment. That's why the loss of the doll subsequently hit me very, very hard, like all these sad stories that I give you with some of the videos. You must think it's quite ludicrous. But basically, you see, what I am trying to say is that is the matrix, because basically every time that is a positive force. That moment was a positive force for me and for the matrix. But the matrix doesn't like too much positivity, so naturally the doll disappeared very soon after, under the most bizarre circumstances, and hit me very hard. Because I thought the doll was real. Of course, the doll was not real. It was merely a projection of myself. I now realise, of course. But this is what can happen. You can infuse something dead, a doll, with life, if you choose to. You can give it life. That I was transferring my energy kind of like into the doll, because I was seeing the doll as a better vehicle. It doesn't matter, but I don't think I made a very good point there, to be honest. But I guess what I was trying to say was that we're spiritual dolls. You see, there are dolls like Lulu really was, not a spiritual doll, but I gave it spirit, I gave it life, because I, like the ventriloquist, put my personality, my emotions, my better points into the doll, because I didn't feel that perhaps I felt comfortable in doing that, because I didn't feel comfortable in my own self, which is wrong really, but at any rate, but either way, it could well have served a purpose, but it didn't, because the doll disappeared soon after. But I don't think I've made a good point there at all. I'm sorry. I'll have to go on to something else. I don't know why I mentioned that really. I might get back to it later. But either way, I'm gonna say that the last video was, I put it behind me, which you have to do in the Matrix. You have to put the negative events that happen, even when you fall right down yourself and become a non-spiritual human being temporarily, if you become what I would say is possessed or taken over by a negative mindset, the Archon mind parasite that we call it. But it's essentially, if you don't buy into, you can, like I said before, you can take my stuff at a very basic level, which actually was my original intent. I never intended to go into the spiritual so-called side of things, but unfortunately I had to, because I realised just soon after I started making the videos, I realised that that human beings are really spiritual, in the sense that they create And therefore, if you are, like if you create, to me that is like a spiritual type of thing. It puts you into a different way of looking at yourself and others than what you would have thought. You're not just physical that only creates, as I've said before, with your hands. It is your thinking and your vibration and your emotion and your mind, much more, but not just the mind. As I've said before, it's more the actual feelings. It's actually the heart in a way, if you want to look at it that way. But I mean, like your heart in the sense that if it's warm towards things, if it's it's meant to be a positive type of heart. It's meant to be like Lulu, this my little spiritual doll, actually did have a good heart. She just wanted people to say, hello, my name's Lulu, how are you? Let's have a little bit of fun, let's enjoy ourselves, let's have a little chat. It was like that. It was like, please say hello, please be friendly, it's all light and fun. But no one wanted to be light and fun with poor little Lulu. They had no interest in Lulu. They were like, you're a silly little doll, jumping around. We are of the Matrix. Even then, we are of the Matrix. We don't go for all that frivolity. We don't think that life is meant to be just one little happy ball of fun where everyone is all love and kindness. And it wasn't like she was overdoing it, saying, hey, you have to give me a hug, you have to, it was just like, let's just be happy, let's not take it too seriously. Obviously, as a child, it was a slight attention thing too, so it was, I suppose, from the point of view of the receiver, the matrix or the person that Lulu was presenting itself to, it probably was a little bit desperate. It probably was a little bit demanding. It probably was saying, yes, hello, I'm Lulu, please engage me. I know that you're an adult and you're not interested in a cutesy little doll, but please engage me. Because I saw Lulu that way. Because I saw it as cute, as pretty, as worthy of a conversation, as worthy of attention. And I found it so rewarding, so, like I say, a moment of total peace and almost ecstasy, you could say. Like I can remember the moment when I became aware that I was in love with a little piece of plastic, because that little piece of plastic was the best of me. And it was a moment of unity with myself and peace with myself and peace with, I remember, because I was actually in a good environment too, because I was on a holiday. We didn't go out much when I was a child or go to beaches and places, but once a year we were allowed to go on this holiday because my father got a free, because he worked on the railways, he was given free train rides, so we could go there for nothing. We could go to places for nothing once a year. And it was a beautiful beach. And I was young. And at that time, I was still comfortable with my body and my person. Not like now or since the matrix confuses. Because I say that because when you're young, I was comfortable in myself, in my body, comfortable what I was, and comfortable with the union with Lulu. And it was a moment of, yes, extreme peace, extreme contentment, extreme oneness with myself and the environment, with the beach around, as if to say, this is all, I can't explain it, but it was only a brief moment, but I was very aware of it. I was conscious, completely conscious of it, because I remember saying to Lulu, I love you. And it was like saying, I love everything right this moment. There's nothing more. It's good. It's great. Of course, it didn't last. It lasted for a very brief moment, believe you me, because things did change. Because even then, you're in the matrix. I didn't know that. And I certainly have, if I, it just come to me now after all these years, but when I think of it, that is a moment that you would chase all your life. But you can't find it again because by that time you have become uncomfortable with the world. You've become uncomfortable with yourself in every way. You've become confused by the world. See, that was simply bliss. Self-acceptance, a love of nature and the world around you, because it was not in in complete harmony in that moment, which I've never experienced since. In fact, as I say, because if you experience that, then the matrix will come down with its negative force to make that actually a negative thing, because the doll turned into a negative shortly after, because I went like the dog the other night. You went from thinking everything was going to be good, and that you'd found a little, you'd invented something yourself as a buffer to the matrix. I look at it that way now, but yes, even that was turned into something negative, because then I was distressed for such a long time after, for months, because I lost myself, the doll. The doll was gone. The doll was taken. I could go into details, but that would be a very boring long video for you when I've already bored you with my spiritual doll. But I don't think I'm making a very good point. But either way, back to the previous video, which I won't harp on because it was a video that even 2 years ago I would never in my wildest dreams have put out, because it, like I say, if even now if I watched my video about my what I call possession, to where you can go from being, actually thinking to kill or to harm that which you actually in your normal state would be the last thing you would do. In fact, in my own way of thinking it, sometimes I could be a lot more negative against people than what I could against innocent animals, and that's actually the truth with me. So I wouldn't have put it out, because I would have thought this. I wouldn't have been honest enough to. I wouldn't have been game enough to. I would have been ashamed to, and I just wouldn't have had enough. I just would have thought, hey, if I watched that my own video, as I said, I would not like that person. So, no one's going to make a video so that people don't like you, especially a people pleaser like me. Like I say, I've been antisocial and a non-person in a way, but I was still a terrible people pleaser, probably going back to the childhood. That's right, where even Lulu was wanting people to like her. Lulu wanted people to like her. Yeah, all children want to be liked. All children want to be loved. They want that. They need that. It's a normal human thing. It's something we lose as we live in the matrix, I think. But also we lose it because if you get enough rejections, it becomes a negative thing, because it will cause you heartache. Love shouldn't cause people heartache, but in the matrix it causes most people more heartache. So therefore they reject their fellow human being. Just as, like if you have a relationship, you will sometimes end up rejecting your spouse. And sometimes you can extend that. You can say, well, maybe I don't relate to that that person because they're a different, like you could even say, hey, well, I don't relate to that person because they're different, because they are. I'm not going there. You see how I just don't want to go there. I was just going to go into all, but you see now we're getting into the matrix is total confusion. The matrix is duality. The matrix God fed off me greatly the other day and does all the time. The matrix has a total love-hate relationship with me and with you, if you are a human, because the matrix loves the fact that you are, yes, their source of supply, their source of energy, that you give to the matrix, just as I gave to the doll. You give the energy, the emotion, the spirits, etc. But the matrix has a love-hate relationship. It is a duality, so it also hates you because it needs you. And it doesn't want to be needy because the matrix is controlled and run by a matrix God, a God entity. This matrix God entity is duality, is love-hate. It loves the human because it loves what it gets from the human, but it hates the human at a real level because you are like like the battery, like in the Matrix, he said the battery, you work the matrix. And the matrix God needs you, and the matrix God feeds off you and enjoys and is very full after it has consumed your energy and your spirit and your life force, your emotions, your feelings, because that is its energy. But it also hates you because it needs that, and because it's a God, it doesn't want to really be needy, and it doesn't want to be needy of something that is a spirit in a way, because the spirit is volatile. The spirit is not it's always trying to, because the matrix is a matrix, which is more like it wants to have, it wants to be able to, keep that supply there. It's frightened of losing its supply all the time, so it resents the supply even though it needs the supply, and so it has a love-hate relationship with us. It's a duality God entity. I will talk on this God entity in another video, maybe. I would like to, even though I really know very little about this entity in many ways. I really do. I keep it basic only from my observation of the world in a way. But I'm sure that there are many others that would know more, and that would, that there could even be names. I don't think the names probably don't matter, because it's quite possible that the names have changed, and the names, I personally think that the God entity has its representations in the matrix. The God entity does not show itself in full force as a real living a deity or being. It doesn't come here and show itself. It shows itself through its minions and disciples, and through that is the God's representation of itself. Just as Lulu, my little spiritual little miniature doll, was a spiritual or I was trying to make it into a representation of me to present to others so that others would like me. Yes, maybe even worship me if you want to look at it that way. I would probably not stretch it that far, but it's a similar thing because I did not think that my representation had been a failure, so therefore use something else. That's what the God entity does. It uses other beings in human form to represent it, because we will like those representations. And maybe the God entity thinks that we might not like its representation, or maybe because it's not allowed to, not at this point, expose itself completely. I don't know what I'm talking about here. I really don't. I really need to make another video to link this up. But it's all a fantasy. Remember that, it's all a fantasy. So all this stuff is still a fantasy. It's a fantasy world. I live in the fantasy world. The stories are only what you make of them. It's like me with the Lulu doll. To other people, it's a pathetical piece of plastic. It does not represent anything. It's like, we don't want that. So it's the same. It's like that. It's a fantasy world. So it's what you want to make of something. If I think the doll had life, it had life for me. I believe it did have life because it's like a ventriloquist. It had life. The actual physical doll did not really have life in itself. No, it didn't. It was a piece of plastic. It was a mechanical machine that looked like a doll. But because I was giving it that life, I was putting my thoughts into it, projecting it to someone else through the doll. So the doll then temporarily had life while I did that, like a ventriloquist. But the minute you take your life from it, imagine what it would be like if like in some movie that I saw a long time ago, it was a very good movie, it was a ventriloquist movie, because actually I used to fancy the idea of being a ventriloquist, probably because, yes, see, I'm making a video now, but I would never have dreamed that I would have been able to make even a video, because I was frightened to project myself directly. And looking at myself now, I can see why. But back then, I wasn't so bad. Like when I was a child, I was okay. I was probably, and I didn't mind myself until I compared myself to the Matrix dolls, if you follow. That's actually true. If you don't compare yourself to the Matrix, even as a child, you will be happy, like I was, until the Matrix starts making you compare, making you compete with your own kind, instead of saying, hey, yes, in that moment of ecstasy, I could say, or enlightenment, or, I can't use the word even. I've got the wrong words. I know I've got the wrong words, but it was a moment of total completeness, fullness, just in myself. I didn't need nothing else. All I needed was the beach, myself, and the doll. And really, I shouldn't have needed the doll. You see, I shouldn't have needed the union with the doll. It was just a piece of plastic, but I needed it because I didn't feel love, because there was not love in the real world. The humans were not giving that back to me. So I needed to create my own fantasy, shall we say, to create harmony. And it was possible. That's what you sometimes have to do. I've not put this well. Not put this well at all. Not put this well. But I would say this, that doll had to be a certain way, had to look a certain way that I felt represented me. At the time, I wouldn't have been able to use a teddy bear for that representation. I wouldn't have been able to use a different type of doll, shall we say. It had to be this particular type of doll. It had to be cute and pretty. It had to be... Anyway, that's not... it's relevant, but it's not relevant. You know what I'm saying? I don't think I'm making this point well at all. I might have to make another video. Oh, dear. I thought maybe I shouldn't talk, but at any rate, I was going to talk, I've gone off the track again, about the previous video where there was the possession and the thing. Now, someone suggested that in light of saying whether you like animals and life, and I don't usually go on to these things, should you not should you not consume animal flesh, shall we say? Should you not perhaps be a vegetarian or something like this and only consume, that's life too, by the way, anyway. I mean, it's all life. But yes, what is the difference? Are you not consuming some sort of spiritual life? Well, that is the case, probably. But my own personal, I don't like to go into this area, but I say it again, we're in a matrix. It's a duality matrix, a love, hate, God, entity dominates and runs the matrix and the minions, and the disciples. And because we live because it's a mind game, so therefore, and it is a love-hate God, therefore, even to be a vegetarian is probably going to be part of the matrix. So therefore, good intentions, and I'm not going to say whether you should or shouldn't, because this is touching too much on its beliefs. I'm not here in these videos to preach, to tell people whether they should be eating this or that, or no, that's not. I don't think, and I think that you become a preacher for the matrix, because then you're going into the duality, you're into the love-hate. Like what I'm trying to say is there are probably people listening to me now, well, maybe or maybe not, I don't know, but the thing is that there could well be people in the world right now that eat chicken, and are not a vegetarian, but they could be much more spiritual than me. I bet they wouldn't have had the mind parasite come into them to where they would think that they should get rid of their own dog, So, what I'm trying to say is it is in this matrix, nothing represents anything in a true reality way at all. You'd think it would, but it actually doesn't. That's what I'm saying. So it would be uppity and stupid and vain and ridiculous for me to be preaching here and saying, oh, you should eat this, you shouldn't eat that. And also you wouldn't know what is spirit and what isn't. You wouldn't know what is clean or unclean. You wouldn't know what is negative or positive. There are many people in the matrix, so-called people in the matrix, that are that may not touch spirit meat, if you know what I mean. In other words, they may not consume another life force, but they could be totally non-spiritual. Yeah, even if they say that they don't eat it because it's an animal. Because there's lots of ways of looking at that. I say there's two ways of looking at everything, and it gets to be very confusing, and we shouldn't have to be doing this, but there could be two ways of looking at that, maybe even three, but two ways at least. You could say, well, what they are consuming might be more negative for the body as a substitute for a life force than what that life force is. Now, I'm not going to go there, but, but you could still have negative life forces, because they could say, look, this is not an animal. But it could be something else that is even more spiritual than an animal, for all you know. But also it could be so artificial that it is a negative for the human being, because that's another thing too. You see, we're in a mind control matrix, so even if the blood of an animal might be negative for a human, but something else could be even more negative. Because it is all the matrix. So if anything that becomes part of the matrix, now, am I right in saying this, or am I giving the negative matrix too much power, saying, hey, look, everything the matrix does will be directed a certain way because they're one step ahead? Because I do believe this, but at the same time, it is possible that that could be a small group of spiritual human beings who are trying to push against it in a positive way. But I would say that their positivity will be a negative in the long run for the matrix, because that is just what happens. Like I say, it's very hard to explain, but at the same time, this idea of eating artificial stuff, because don't forget, even animal is natural. Manufactured foods are full of what is artificial too. So, and like I say, I think everything, humans are meant to be natural nature. So, I don't think I'm making this very well. This is why I'm saying it's a minefield, it's a mind game, and it is just mass confusion. You're doomed if you do, and you're doomed if you don't. Is that the right saying? I'm not quite sure about that either, but I'm not sure about that at all. You see, even with, in that moment, I know I'm going all over the place and not making any sense, but you see, that's the matrix. The matrix has got me. I can't keep on track as much as what I used to. So my videos have gone from reasonable to really negative, because it's hard for me to keep on track. And you do need to keep it simple, but it's impossible in the Matrix because even though things at a basic level probably are simple and should be simple, the Matrix deliberately creates chaos, confusion, and all this. That's right. It's a mixture of duality, good and bad, right and wrong, love, hate. It's a love, hate, God entity, and its whole minions, disciples, the whole, that is most of the world. So it's like that. Now I could go into something else, but you see, you have to go almost into a kind of religious type thing. But it's not necessary. It's still basic. I am not making sense here at all. Like it is even like religion itself, right? And I don't touch on religion, as you know, but I have made fantasy videos. I go back to the Garden of Eden. That's just a figure of speech. That means back to what I think is the beginning of human kind of existence, as best I know, because I don't really know. It's a pure fantasy. And I would like to say that if I say the wrong thing about my fantasies, they are fantasies. They're not, if you are, like, say you're religious, right, and I talk about the Garden of Eden, please don't take offence. Don't take it literally. But although I am not going to be disappointed or angry if you do, because if you believe something, that is your right, and you may well be correct, because I'm not going to get it right. I have not studied these things. It is purely what comes to me, and it's meant to be a fantasy thing where you can get a little something out. It's not meant to be where you say, hey, this is 100% correct, as going back to some sort of Garden of Eden. It's not meant to be a quote from any book. It's not meant to be like that. It isn't like that. And the Garden of Eden, even when I say that, and religion, it's... I looked up the word paradox the other day. I don't know why, because someone put it in a video and said something was a paradox, and I thought, yes, I know what a paradox is, but do I? I think it's where something contradicts, but I wasn't entirely sure. So I looked up the exact meaning to get, and of course then you get it much more, because like I say, I'm ignorant. Even on words, I might use them, but sometimes you can get them, they can be interpreted wrong, and also you might not get the full gist. So even at a religious level, like, there is always what they call a paradox. Yes, because I get it now that the paradox is like, you talk about, if you were talking like, and it appeared to be religious, like people have their religious beliefs. But the paradox is kind of like this. This is how I often think of religion, that most religions, even in the world, are quite honourable in the sense that they will probably say you shouldn't kill. So it was bad of me to think even and to raise my hand like, that's right with the animal and whatever. But it's bad because that's a rule of most religions. It's a rule. But at the same time, you will see often religions, if you don't agree with the religion, then they will be negative and want to destroy you. Or if you don't agree, or if you think that their religion is not correct because they think it is God, so therefore you don't go against God, but God's actual word says you should not kill. So that is a paradox, isn't it? Am I putting that right? Like, it is the rule of your religion not to kill, but because the religion is, in your belief, God and the all, it is okay to kill or destroy that which does not agree with all your beliefs, all your God, your religion. You see, that's a paradox. That's what they call a paradox, I think. So you're breaking your own God's law in order to protect your so-called God or its belief or its religion or whatever it is. So there's a paradox there, because if that is the rule of the God, then you're not supposed to break it under any circumstances, but then you do break it because you are meant to defend your God and its rules and laws, etc., or it's, I'm not making sense here. That's, I think, a paradox anyway, but I don't think, as usual, I've explained it poorly. And then I get angry with myself for not even making it clear on the video and rambling for so long. And this video was supposed to be before I started and went on to spiritual dolls and Lulu and the duality, love, hate, God, entity. You see, I do feel that, I don't like to go into these sorts of things, and yet I feel that everything I say will be a contradiction, like the vegetarian thing, like everything in this reality. It will be a lose-lose situation for the human in many ways, because it's chaos, but then again, it's chaos because it is a belief in a duality, love, hate, God, and the love, hate. But, of course, one could say, well, yeah, you're meant to balance that out. Others might, I personally think that, we're getting so ridiculously confused by all this. As you can see, I am a very good example of it, not putting it right at all, and out of balance, like I say, even in my own thing at the moment in doing this video, which should not even be going out, but I'm putting them out now because it may not be about getting information. It may be just about cherry picking, as they say, and getting a little something, but mainly it's just about saying, hey, it's, as I said in the other video, it's important to be what you are and be happy with what you are. The Matrix will make you, like I say, I had it there for a moment when I was a child with the Lulu doll on that beach. Had it there for a brief moment in a whole lifetime. That moment should have been my whole life. This is what humans are meant to be. That's how humans are meant to feel. They're not meant to feel this duality all the time. But you even in acknowledging the Matrix God and this duality, this love-hate, it is there for the human to create the chaos. And the religions often offer the opposite. They're offering the moment, the Lulu moment. But how can they offer that when they are the Matrix? And the Matrix is duality. The Matrix can't offer it can't offer balance because it isn't balance. It creates imbalance so that you will then want to seek balance as a human being. But really, the balance is already in you or should be in you. It's the matrix that makes you out of balance. It's the matrix, the God entity, the whole thing, because that is the world we live in. Now if you are of that liking, then you are in the right domain. Look, I'm going to go on to music, okay, because I'm not making sense here. And maybe I won't send this video out. Now, music, okay. This is just something for you to take literally if you want to. I'm going to take it literally, okay? It's just a comment. It's not meant for you to, you can take it good or bad, you can believe it or you can act on it or you can dismiss it. It's okay. Music, okay? Music is part of our world, a big part of the duality, a big part of the God entity and his love-hate mad matrix, as I would say, but that's putting it bluntly, because mad means chaos, mad means out of touch with rational, with what you should just see as reality, because it is a technological world and technology is the opposite to human, and it's an artificial created world. It's an illusion, just like my fantasies. You know, you could say, well, mine's all fantasy. It's illusion for me to put life into things and to create a fantasy. That's right out of nothing. But that's what humans do. But they give life to the matrix because the matrix doesn't have imagination. The matrix doesn't put life into the Lulu doll. You know, I put life into the Lulu doll and I put life into the matrix because it's an artificial domain. It's like Lulu, even though I loved Lulu, but that was my delusion, my necessary need at the time to create a balance that should have been in me, a peace or a completeness in myself. I shouldn't have needed Lulu to project, some sort of love or some sort of, I shouldn't have needed that. In fact, I probably wouldn't have needed if I was if I was just on the beach on my own and not in the matrix, because even back then there was still the matrix. Like, that was a temporary respite from the matrix for a few brief moments, you could say, as humans were meant to be, like back in the Garden of Eden, I would imagine. And that's a fantasy too, but it's the same thing. It's like where you don't have all this technological chaos around you that is giving you a false reality and making you feel that you are part of something else, as opposed to just saying, I'm here, I'm on the beach, I am happy with what I am. I don't have to change anything, I don't have to do anything. I am one with nature, I am one with myself, and I am one with whatever else there is, because whatever else there is has put me here, and so I'm okay. I don't know if that makes any sense really, but anyway, it's hard to explain a moment, and I don't think I've done it very well, perhaps if I thought about it. But the music, okay, the music in the world we live in. Music has always been a big part of humans and their culture and their world. Up until 2.5 years ago, I listened to music all the time. And I listened even to contemporary, quite up-to-date music, pop music of the now, even though I am not young. You know, usually sometimes as you get older, you tend to stick with the music you're familiar with, and you tend to say, oh, all this music now is rubbish, it's trash, it's not any comparable to the music that I listen to. It's just a lot of trite rubbish. You know, we tend to do that. I actually never did that, strangely enough. I always liked all the stuff that I'd liked before, but I like to keep up. I actually probably thought that it made me young, but I actually didn't mind it. I actually did not mind it. I also did not mind the fact that the videos became more more obvious in their explicitness, and that the artists were more revealing in their demeanour, that many of them did not clothe themselves very much in this sort of stuff. Others perhaps too much now. So it's kind of like there again, the Matrix offers something for everyone and mass contradictions in every way. Like you're empowered, but it's okay to be unclad. It's okay to be, you do not represent some sort of sexuality, but it's okay to be overtly that way in a video, to project very enticing, seductive, videos that show much and that get some people quite, I know myself, but I would have looked at those videos and said, well, look, if someone, I wouldn't do it myself because my body is awful, but I would have said, hey, if you're young and you've got a nice body, is there any harm in flaunting it and showing it as much of it? So I didn't see that as empowering for that person at that level, or that there was a contradiction. I just thought, hey, it's entertainment for me. It's pretty. If they show more than what they need to, I don't find that necessarily offensive. And this, of course, is the Matrix too. But either way, that's not the point that I was getting at. That's just how the videos have changed. And there is elements of that too that we should look at, just as a curiosity, not in any sort of saying what's good or bad or what's this or that, because like I say, it's all attractive and it's all entertainment. But at the same time, it still has other connotations if you want to look at it that way. Because that's the Matrix, it's duality, it's always presenting all these opposites. And they expect you to say the opposites are okay, and that you can have, yes, the paradox. You can have the paradox, they're saying, I guess. But really, I wonder if you can. I don't know. But it never confused me before. It's only confusing me now that I choose not to listen to music. Now, I love music. And I used to watch even what they call Rage, which is like videos that go all night, up until about 2 or 3 years ago, even though I'm old. And I would watch the new ones. I did not single it out and say, hey, I'll only watch the ones that I like, or I'll only watch the ones that are of the period of time where I would watch the very latest and enjoy doing that. And found the music quite entertaining. A bit more complicated in some ways, but I was fine with that too. But now, over the last 2.5 years, I have decided that it is not a benefit for me personally to listen to music. Now you would say, why? Why something that you found fun and entertaining and harmless in a way, even knowledgeable in some ways, because certainly they put so much more into music now as times went on than the simple love songs that they used to have years and years ago. Personally, I think it was better when they stuck to the simple love songs, even though this is only a decision I've made recently, as I say. I did not think there was anything wrong with putting anything you like into a song. I'm saying, why can't you put anything you want into a song? That's your expression, supposedly. Although I now, of course, believe it is not an expression of any artist. It is purely an expression of the Matrix, the God and its entities and its world. Because it has to be, because it's a Matrix. So everything comes from the Matrix. So music comes from the Matrix. It doesn't come from an individual artist, but the individual artist is a disciple or a minion of the Matrix. You see, in fact, it is its best representatives of the Matrix God. It will be its most enticing. It will be its most attractive. It will be its most interesting. It will be its most visually, mentally, intellectually, psychologically, and every way you can think of, its best, because it represents the Matrix God entity. Because the Matrix God does not It's a bit like in the Garden of Eden, I think they said, and I'm going to look, whatever I say, don't take it seriously because it's a fantasy. So if I quote, in the beginning or some book or something, I do not have full knowledge of these things. So don't take it seriously. Don't get upset. Don't say I've got it wrong. In fact, you can do that if you like. You can correct me. That's fine. But I'm just saying, hey, I have not studied these things. I probably get it. When I talk about, I will take a bit from something and use it. That's all. But it doesn't mean I know the whole thing. And so if I understand, though, that if you know something, a real lot about something, and that if I just cherry pick a little bit, a quote or something out of a book or out of a religion or out of a fantasy or anything at all, and I get it wrong, it's your right and your privilege to correct me on that. And you're probably 100% right, because I don't know. But I'm actually absconding myself by saying, yes, look, I don't know these whole things. So don't take it serious. Just realise that I'm just a bit like if I say Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, I might say, oh, well, look, I think one of them was sleepy. One of the dwarfs was sleepy, but I can't remember the rest. So I'm just going to go with sleepy. And you might say, well, look, you can't do that. That's our fairy tale. That's our belief. Well, I'm sorry. I don't want you to take it that way. I'm ignorant, and I'm just taking things. But I do have great respect for these things, and think there is much power in them. And validity in the sense that I'm using. But yes, if you know more and you take the whole thing, I can see how you would say, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. But that's like that paradox with a religion. Don't get to where you actually break even your own rules just because someone else has got it wrong and they're not following the whole thing. Like, I'm not offending, I'm not meaning to do that. Okay, so I'm just saying that, even whether you get that, because I wish I knew more. If I knew more, I might use some other examples. So everything to me is a fantasy. Please don't take it literally or seriously, okay? So the music, I've gone off that, okay, the music. Why am I not listening to the music now? I could go back to another fairy tale, another fantasy of things. Originally, see there again, I'm ignorant, so I'm just making it up, okay? I'm going to tell you, I'm making it up, but going back to a previous video of a bit back, in the fantasy of the heaven originally, of the original creator, before the creation of a human being, there were other beings in the heaven, as the fantasy goes, as the story goes. Some will say it's true, some will say it's fantasy. I would say I don't have enough information on the fantasy, but the most reserved being was a musical entity, a musical being, second to the creator, the one only. This being could enchant with music. This being was beautiful in its ability to magically entice, control, influence, and just generally mesmerize those around it by its beauty and its music. Very similar to what we have today, where I have been mesmerized for a lifetime by many of the musical artists. These people present such enticing images. They captivate you with their songs because you relate to them. You don't know that you have given the matrix your feelings and emotions, which is then given to its disciples and minions to then entice you back into the matrix. Did I put that right? Because that's how it is, because you're still the battery or the cog or the machine literally, you're a machine to the Matrix, but you're not a machine, you're a spiritual being. But you are seen that way as the Matrix because the Matrix is a technological machine whole entity. And you are the food or the supply or the source for that. I'm not putting this right. But either way, getting back to the music, I should keep on track and keep it simple. Look, the music now, I choose not to listen to it because of this awareness that the music is a temptation, the music is an enticement, the music is a mind change. It can, because it entices you with your own feelings that you have given to the Matrix and your own emotions that you have given to the Matrix. I'm not putting this well, but then it will be twisted around with other connotations to give you a broader view, which you may or may not agree with. I personally do not agree with that. I'm not saying whether I agree with the ideas of the songs or the what the songs are trying to tell you. I'm not saying whether I agree or disagree with that. I'm saying I disagree with the whole idea of that it is a mind game. And so that tells me that I don't want to be playing in the mind game. So therefore, if I don't want to be playing in the mind game, I mustn't listen to the mind game music, even if I agreed with it. Because music is not meant to be used even to show a universal love or a universal what we should or shouldn't be. No. It should be just you finding it in yourself, not from the outside. But we now do it from the outside because most like that. They agree with that and they think it is good to be one with the Matrix or with the universe. The Matrix is not the universe, but it's close to it. It's our universe. It's our world. But it's not the universe, I wouldn't think. That's just me. I say the opposite. I say it's an enclosed region that is a matrix. It's an enclosed prison, a prison matrix for us to play in. But it's a prison because we can't get out, because we only know the matrix. We only know the earth. We don't know anything beyond the earth. I know some of us might say, well, there's the moon and a few other things. But they're part of the matrix too, I would imagine. But the matrix is not as vast or as big as what we would think. I wouldn't think. It doesn't matter but it's not everything. I personally don't think it's everything at all. In fact, I think it's a minuscule, small, negative region that is used to play this mind love-hate game. That is what it is. Why it is, what it is for, and that whole thing is another big question, and not one that I can answer or can answer in this video. I'm only going to keep on the music, because I think if you just centre on little things, basic things like I do, unless you already know more, that's okay too, that's great. But, I don't. So I only centre on the few things I see around me, and if it comes to me that it is negative, then I'm saying I don't care if I like it. I don't care if I saw it as innocent and beneficial in the past. I saw it as beneficial in the past to listen to music. Music enlightened me. Music entertained me. Music was more real and more honest and more human than anything else. But how can it be? It's the Matrix. How can it be more real? How can it be more human? How can it be more feeling? How can it be more genuine? How can it be any of that? It is a reflection of the Matrix and the Matrix God. If you think that is the all, and if you think that is great. And if you think that is love, and if you think that is some sort of universal, big, huge picture, and that your music disciples are which they are, representation of the God. But are they? Are they a representation of the God in its purest form? Or are they from the human, deciphered, filtered, and then used to create a beautiful song and a beautiful persona on the matrix God entity star? Demigod representative. I'm not putting this very well. To keep you playing in the matrix. I don't think I put that right. Look, some people want to play in the matrix. Okay? Supposing I meet. Supposing I'm 30 years younger, I have to emphasise that because otherwise I don't make sense and I look stupid, which is fair enough. But, I could say, supposing I'm young and I'm normal. When I say normal, I mean in balance to where, I like normal other human beings and I might want to get married or I might want to do this and that. Even that is not. That's open to debate normal these days because the matrix has expanded its views and its ideas about everything, as we all well know. And that's the reality, which I'm not, interested in one way or the other, to be quite honest. But supposing I want to get married, right, and I see this beautiful person. I emphasise person because these days, it's best to say person, isn't it? Because it could be anyone or anything, couldn't it? It could be, But either way, I see a beautiful person and I'm like, hey, I want to play with that person. That person entices me. I cannot resist that person. Even if I see some few negative things about that person, I'm going to dismiss them because what I'm seeing appeals to me. Because the matrix has put that there for me. The matrix knows what I think and what I like, so the matrix will give me what I would want to have, what I would dream about. It could even be my weakness, because it is a weakness, because it is the matrix, but you won't see it as a weakness, you will see it as a strength. But you will want to play. Now, some people consciously play in the matrix, whether it's negative or positive. They choose that. They like that. That is fair enough. That is not for me to say that you shouldn't go with the demigod of the God matrix. The God matrix is not the all either, probably, but is the God of this thing. So, you could say that's a demigod and they are the God representatives, whatever, the superstars, the whatever your idol is, whatever it is that you think is a representation of you in a way. A lot of people see their idols and those that they like as a representation of them. Just as when I'm not putting this well, but like that's what I say, whatever entices you is how you secretly probably see yourself in a way, just as I projected myself onto the Lulu doll. I could have easily found a real human little girlfriend, for instance, that was like that and got some satisfaction out of that. But that's why I say it was better than that, in the sense that when you're dealing with a person, you actually don't feel complete in yourself, do you? And actually it's not necessary. That's what I'm saying. Everything you have is already there. You don't have to change yourself. See, when I was young, right, if I was a kid and if I hadn't compared with myself, like I didn't have I didn't have bright blue eyes and bright blonde hair and cherry red lips and that like the doll did. You know what I mean? But it didn't matter because I didn't compare myself then as a child. Even though I knew that some children around me might well have been prettier or might well have had other abilities and things, because that's how it's meant to be, that human beings are just meant to accept what they are and not let the matrix confuse them or make them feel less than what they are from the day they're born. This is a matrix thing, I think. Everything is what is around you from the day you're born. And so that's what I think anyway. So because it took me, like I say, that would not have happened, that moment with the doll, if I had compared myself to anything else. It was like I was just the only person and I was okay. I was comfortable with everything. I was comfortable with my body. I was comfortable with the environment. I was comfortable, even when that moment with the doll, it was projecting onto the doll, but the doll was the projection of me. So I don't, you know what I'm trying to say? I say that's how I feel about it now. I consciously was aware that I was doing this, even not as a child, but certainly a few years later. All my life I have been quite consciously aware that the doll was a representation of me. I've gone off onto the thing, but it's the same when you idolise someone else, whether it be someone that's in the public domain that's very successful, that maybe is able to express musically what you think and feel. But the Matrix has taken what you think and feel and put it into a song and given it to its number one most desirable representative demigod entity doll, like the doll. In other words, whatever form it comes in, it's doll. And infuse that with your thoughts and emotions, but took from others. I can't explain this, but it's kind of, because it's a technological matrix, it takes from the human. And in fact, don't forget, and I could be wrong about this, because I do like to give humans a lot of credit. I don't give the matrix any credit at all. I give it all to the simple human. And when I say the simple human, I don't mean the God human. I don't mean the God-like humans that parade around on this earth. They are the God entities, disciples, minions. If you like that and you believe in that, that is okay. I do not. I believe in the simple human, not because I think that they're great. Look at me, how pathetical I am. I can't even follow my own things. I raise my hand against a dog. I'm fallible and pathetical and human and completely controlled by the matrix, and at the lowest level a human can be, at a spiritual, physical, emotional, mental, intellectual, almost all levels. Well, I do have my moments, and yes, I still have something. But that's what I say. If I'm the worst of it, and I admit that we're right down the bottom, but I believe we're meant to be right at the top. So, yes, of course, I see the minions and think they are better than me, because of course they're better than me, because they have taken what is the best from me and others, and manipulated it and filtered it and put it into a form that I will find highly desirable and very hard to resist. And I will see that as a projection of myself, like the doll, but will love and adore it and worship it as a god, because it will represent the best of me, as the doll did, little realising that it is only the best of me, but I was, or you, were the source. Without your spirit and without your feelings and your thinking, that god, that doll, does not exist. It is merely a piece of plastic or a very fancy demeanour, a very fancy lifelike looking doll or human doll, if you follow me. That's how the matrix works. Now, some other people could say, well, yes, that's because we are all one. We are all one big, beautiful consciousness, and the matrix is that. And the matrix God is love, hate. The matrix God is perfect. And we should all be one with the matrix and the matrix God and its minions. And you are its minion. You are one of its minions. You are a piece of the one consciousness, the one God entity, earth consciousness. This is what many believe. I do not believe that. I know it's true, so don't get me wrong. It is true, but it is the matrix. But you can be a piece of the matrix. You can be a one piece of little consciousness of the matrix, technological God entities, earth system, technological matrix. You can be that. And if you love it and if you are part of that, that is your right. And who knows if you are correct or not. And either way, if you make that choice, then you will probably be okay with it. I do not wish to be that, but I am part of it because I'm connected to it. But I say I am the little human that is on the beach with the Lulu doll, and I should be complete in myself because this is the matrix. And if I am part of anything, whatever it is, I do not choose the matrix, okay? That's all I can really say. But if you are fine with that and you believe that, and it is true, it is a one technological spiritual consciousness, if you like, but I emphasize it is a spiritual technological consciousness. I say a human being is meant to be just a natural spiritual consciousness and not connected to the matrix. Now, I know that at the start of my videos I say, hey, we are spiritual beings in a physical body. Our thought creates reality and we're all connected. I know I say this. But I am not connected to the all one consciousness of this spiritual technical matrix. Yes, I am, but not voluntarily because I am in this closed prison matrix world. It's a prison because it is closed and we cannot get out. And most don't want to get out. They like it. They like playing in the matrix. They are part of a consciousness. But I want to know why I'm here because I don't want to be part of it. You know, and this is the question you have to ask, I suppose. And then, you know, it's like I say, it's like saying I choose not to listen to the music because that means that I am of the matrix, and as much as I find it enticing and enjoy it, and I think that I will be clever enough and big enough and spiritual enough and even just think that I am all it. So yes, I think I can indulge. I think I can listen to that music. But it won't take me over because I am me. And that is just something I enjoy. I say no. I say it will take you over because everything is frequency, vibration, and energy. And the music is frequency and vibration. And the music is magic. It is from the God. It is from the matrix. And it will take you over because it is unconscious. As I said, I don't understand all this. I'm talking through my hat. So you will have to do more investigation. You will have to have more knowledge than me. Because I'm just talking fantasy here. And I probably make no sense, but we are conscious and unconscious. We have a conscious and unconscious mind. As I've said before, I don't have any control over hardly my conscious, much less my unconscious. And if I wasn't told it existed, I wouldn't even believe it exists. But the music does go into your mind, into your unconscious or your subconscious or whatever you like. It doesn't matter, but it goes into your psyche, whatever word. I don't understand these things. That's why I get frustrated, you can see, and I look stupid doing it. But you can't, how, look, all I know is what I know from my own personal experience as a simple, silly human being, right? Now, I don't listen to the music. I've chosen not to just in recent times. But the Matrix wants me to be infiltrated with it because the Matrix knows, and I know myself, once I hear a song, I cannot get it out of my head for days. That's mind control. That's the Matrix, because you should be able to listen to something and say, I don't even like that piece of music. And it wasn't a piece of music I chose to listen to. Well, you say you do choose. But no, this is the point that I'm getting at. See, now if I go down to the 7-Eleven, they now play music in the 7-Eleven where you buy stuff, You go in there to get a coffee. You have to be hit with whatever music the Matrix has got playing on the radio. When I go in there, the music is chosen for me. And because I am a normal human being, even though one ear is not working too well, I can still hear the lyrics and I can still get the beat going into my head, which may be negative or whatever, and the lyrics will go in. And me being a little bit perceptive, of course, even if I haven't heard that song before, there will be parts of that song that will stay in my mind for days. And I did not even choose that music because I had to go into the 7-Eleven to get the coffee, okay? So, and the same in the shopping centre. Like they have music now playing in all shopping centres in Sydney. They never used to. So if you wanted to be a bit peaceful and just concentrate on your grocery shopping, but now you do not choose that music, it is put there. The same with the ads or anything else. Now, you see what I'm trying to say is that if you're trying to avoid the music because you say, hey, I don't want to be part of that now, you can't avoid it, and it will be negative, and it will be chosen for you. Well, you would say, well, look, it's just random. You should be able to ignore that song and I do. I try to ignore it, but it's not possible because music has a very power. It is vibration. A human, because they are of the vibration, they are senders of it, they are receivers of it, mainly receivers of the vibration these days. Most of us are not sending too much, and if we are sending it, it will be negative because we receive negative vibration. Now, see, some people listen to music, and I've heard people say this to me. They say, how can you say that music is negative? It empowers me. I've seen this on this very YouTube where people will comment about music and they will say, I don't, I might think, oh, that's negative. And I will see people saying, this music has empowered me. This music has made me feel important. This music has made me feel whole. This music has made me feel godlike. This music has inspired me. This music shows me the truth. You shouldn't need it from a piece of music. That's what I say now. That is the delusion. That is the Matrix. Don't give the music any credit. The music comes from you. You already had it. The Matrix took what was from you, regurgitated it by its own technological system, its intellect and all the stuff that a Matrix has, because it's all technology mainly. It's not human. But in reality, you already had that. It's just that you were not aware of it because you're not aware of your whole mind. You don't know that you are the creator. You don't know that the music come from you. I wouldn't know if I've got a Beethoven inside of me in my subconscious. I wouldn't know if the Matrix is getting the very best music that I idolize and think is wonderful And then I idolized the Matrix music gods. Did the music come from me or from you? If you are a real human. This is my fantasy, my theory, or whatever you like. It's not a theory, it's just a fantasy. But I think that that's how technology works. I certainly see it in my own reality, because I often see regurgitated to me, not ideas, but words and things. Sometimes it's only little glimpses, but I'm saying that it's probably more than glimpses, because they steal or they take. I mean, in these days, of course, we give it freely too. See, don't forget, you can give it freely. You know, it can be taken from you or stolen, but it can also be given freely. In many ways, we give it freely. I would say it's taken. I think that's a movie, Taken. I would say it's taken, but I also give it freely. Because even now in making a video, I'm expressing, I'm giving something, and my subconscious mind could be thinking all sorts of things. And tomorrow, what I'm saying or thinking could well pop up in a pop song. And then people go, wow, that artist, that music, oh, it is magic. It is, I really like that star. And that becomes your idol, your icon. You're worshipping yourself, but you don't know it. That's what I say. That's my fantasy. Because the Matrix is all around the human being. I don't think I put this very well. And like I say, but either way, as I say, the music... See, the music is like this. I'm trying to put it and I can't get it across. I'm just no good at this. If I was better at this, I'd be able to put it across. See, the music is taken from you, a real human, I mean, who has feelings and emotions and has music in them, but it could be in the subconscious. It could only be bits of music. You know, I don't know this, you see, so I'm just making up the scenario. It's a fantasy and it's a scenario. It's a fairy tale, take it whichever way you like, but it could be, and maybe you will know more. You might be able to piece it together better than me, because I know I haven't got all these things correct, because I don't have the big picture. I don't even have a small picture, but I just get pieces. The pieces are enough for me, and I will act on the pieces. So if I say, hey, I think the music is coming back to me in a negative way to influence me and to change me, or to make me think a different way to what perhaps I now see as not beneficial. Someone like me can listen to it now, probably, and not be influenced by it, or at least not take it to be gospel, shall we say. Is that the right word? That means to be an absolute truth. But in the past, I might not have took it to be gospel or absolute truth, but I was still influenced by it. I still thought it was acceptable. You know, like if an artist now presents itself a certain way, what I used to find desirable and attractive and fun and okay and not a negative and not anything that I saw working for the earth as a whole as a negative, or as something that wasn't a benefit to a human, I now would see that maybe it's not such a benefit. And so therefore I choose to try to avoid it, even though I myself can see it, so I might not be taken down as much by it. But I do think that, you know, I know myself in the past, how influenced I was, how I thought it was truth, how I thought music was essentially another form of truth. And it is, but it is truth that has been taken from the human and then regurgitated and turned into a matrix truth, which may be a truth or may be an untruth, depending on what you think. And these things will vary from item to item, from situation to situation, from song to song, from movie to movie, from everything will be different. It won't all be clear cut. I personally think it is all of the anti-life vein, but that is just me because I have succumbed to thinking that it is a total anti-life negative realm. I do see it as this, as a form of entrapment, this matrix. I don't see it as a one consciousness earth that can evolve into a positive all for one matrix. No, I don't see it that way, but that's just me. Others may see it that way, and if they want to make it that way, and if they believe in it, and if they want it, that is their privilege, and who knows, they may well be temporarily, I would think, better off. But this is all opinion, it's all speculation, it's all fantasy, so you take it whichever way you like. Each person is entitled to their own fairyland, their own fantasies, their own beliefs, their own way of looking at things. They're entitled to worship and idolise who and what they want. They can believe in the matrix, God, and this earth. They can believe that it is this or that. They can say it's natural, not artificial. They can say they like the technology and they think it is benefit. They can say all these things if they want. That is their choice, their privilege, and it is not for me. And I would not and do not go for or against anything. I only say what I see myself. It's something to consider. Should you avoid music like me? I can't avoid it anyway. So what I'm trying to say is the matrix tells me. That's why I do say the music is negative, because I'm saying, hey, if I choose not to listen to music, but I still can't escape it, the matrix sees power in the music. And so I do not have the choice that others have to choose to totally avoid the music, or to choose the music that I even wish to listen to. I obviously I could choose that if I was choosing music, but I'm trying to separate from that, because even if I listen to a song and I think it is positive for me, I'm not to know if it's not going into my subconscious with something negative. I do not have the power to stop that, and I don't have the awareness to know that. I'm not at full potential to be aware of the full potential of the magic music song, and I'm not at full awareness to resist the enticement of the magic music performer. They are literally performers. Of course they're performers. They are the very best artists. They are the most enticing, the most seductive, the most enchanting. There again, I don't like to be religious, but like I say, if I can think of some example from a religion or from a book that represents, because these things just come to me. I haven't got time to find the best examples. You can think of enchantresses in the past that have seduced many a wise man into doing something that they normally wouldn't have. Just as in the Garden of Eden, we are told that Eve was seduced by some other entity. She already had her own chosen partner who loved and adored her and thought she was the most beauticious of all, and probably was at that time, because there may not have been as much competition. I don't know. I'm being ridiculous, but that's a point too. If you don't have any competition, the God entity doesn't like competition. The God entity tends to operate under, if I can't be the be and end all, and there is, many psychopathic, narcissistic type of people tend to operate that way. Their mindset is, I am the God, I am the best. But if they see something that challenges that best, or that is something that they like, but they themselves find too hard to incorporate into their personality, or they think they probably can't because they are already complete and they are not, it's too time consuming, too difficult, too laborious. It's much easier to eliminate than to change yourself. In other words, there's two ways of staying a god. You can either expand yourself or you can eliminate the competition. I'm saying a would-be God because this is all a would-be God. This is not a real God. These are people and gods that think they are the be and end all, but if they were, they would not need to eliminate lesser life forms to prove that they are a god or to maintain their godliness. But they do, just as the narcissist and the psychopath often actually tries to destroy other humans that it sees as some sort of threat, or something that they just find it, they don't want to change. They're like, oh, it's, instead of saying, oh, that person is less than me, so I walk away, I'll leave it alone. They clearly don't think that because they feel the need to actually know that person and to try to get something from them and then destroy them. That is like the Matrix. It takes from the human, it gets something from them, and then after it is taken from them, it's like, well, I've got what I want now. Eliminate, get rid of, because I am the God, you are the lesser, and I don't need you now. But you really are valuable because otherwise, if it was the God, why would it need to get something from you, I would say. It's the same with the narcissist, or the psychopath. It's like, if they already are, why do they feel the need to even associate with something less? Or the need to destroy that? A bit like bullies, when people bully other people. It's like sometimes you'll look at the bully and say, that bully looks better than the person that they're bullying. But the bully knows different. The bully knows that other person has something they don't, or something they envy, or something they don't like, something they see as a threat. And so they bully to destroy the other person. Doesn't matter what superficial appearances are. That bully might have many more friends than the person they bully, usually does. But they see that person as not of their matrix, not to fit their God-like one consciousness, shall we say. I'm going all over the place here and I don't know what I'm talking about. These things just come to me. I don't even know what one consciousness is. I don't believe in it. And if I did, I know I say that we're all connected. So I'm contradicting myself too. I'm a paradox. Maybe one day I'll get to the nitty-gritty of it and explain it clearly, concisely and accurately to where it at least makes some sense, because I know I never do. And I apologise for that, but that's useless too, because, some people would say, well, you need to get your act together instead of always saying you're sorry, because you shouldn't need to say you're sorry. I was about to quote something, but I can't remember it. But it's all just one big mass of confusion and this. I think on each individual issue, like the music, you just need to centre on it and say, hey, this is how I see it. This is all I do now. Because otherwise you just go into the insane matrix. Otherwise you just go into the duality to where you become insane and confused. And, because you can know so much that you get confused and it becomes, this battle almost. There shouldn't be a battle. You just need to isolate each incident, I think, or at least each individual topic or what you're focusing on, and say, this is the best I can do. I think this is not a benefit to me. That's how I look at it. I say, I think I can listen to music without it taking me over, but at the same time, maybe I'm thinking too big of myself, so I don't think I shall put myself in that position to where I have to exercise all my mind, which is largely taken over by the Matrix anyway. So I think that I might just keep away from it, just to be on the safe side, even though it's tempting, and yes, I'm losing something. I did used to enjoy it. But, now I would only look at it to kind of see whether I'm right in thinking that it is, what is it like that old biblical thing, Salome doing the dance of the seven veils in order to seduce the famous king or whoever he was. I don't know all these things. There again, if I had more history, more information, I would be able to present things better, because I don't know, I'm ignorant that way, and I apologise for that, but I'm just too old to be able to accumulate a history that I don't have or information I don't have. So I play it by ear and I pick it up on isolated things. And that was the original intention of the video, was to talk to people who were like me, in the dark, simple human beings who, and originally it was not even about spirituality. It was just like saying, hey, I think there's a few things wrong in the environment in this earth, and people don't know that they're living in too much of a system. I became aware of that things were a lot more controlled and a lot more restricted, and that was a negative. I saw that as a negative. I think it's better if we have more freedom as opposed to, security and being one with everything to where we're secure, but we're also restricted. On the other hand, what am I talking about? Am I saying that everything should just run amok and whatever? Well, I'm saying no, but I'm saying yes, that's probably how it could be if we were all the correct people, if we were all comfortable in ourselves and were not competing and were in that state, like I said, when I had the doll on the beach, to where I felt complete in myself and didn't feel that there was something wrong with me in any way and that I didn't have to do anything. I just had to exist. Then of course you could have that, but that is not the world we live in. We live in a matrix where everyone likes the competition, everyone likes this, they like playing in the matrix. So of course, yes, a lot of what I say is not going to work, because we've got two worlds in one. We've really only got one world, and those that think that we should have a different type of world, we are stuck in the matrix, and we can't have that world that is not that is more loose and more that is less technological, that is less where there is no system, where there is no there's no unity to other human beings. Not in the sense that everyone is agreeing that we have to have this rule or that, or that we have to live a certain way and that we have to do this and that a certain way. So I don't know what I'm talking about, and I've made no sense, and I better fold up the video. But anyway, to finish up before this finishes up anyway, it was about the music, and I didn't even go into that very well, but music is much more than what we think. It can go into your mind and stay in there whether you like it or not. So it is a spiritual type of thing in a way, but it's a spiritual thing from the matrix, which has come from you, but has been, like I say, transformed into something different so that you're still enticed by it, but it's not the same original message that you would have originally been thinking. But if you listen to enough of it, you will become the music of the matrix, not your own music, because you will think it's your own music, because there's bits of it that are you. maybe even quite a lot for some, but there will still be other little bits that aren't, and it will be a gradual process of changing you to want to play in the magic music of the Matrix and the magic matrix in general, because the music will also change your ideas about the matrix and about the earth. The earth is the matrix, so it's like that too. Music has much more profound effect, as I know myself through a lifetime. Like when I first heard some of my first original music when I was very, very young, I thought, wow, this music is so profound. This music knows more than me. These artists, these people, they know more. I don't fully understand it, but it's so captivating. And of course, now when I think back, they were saying stuff that was profound too. The only difference is I didn't understand the source. You see, you must understand the source. The music is not coming from a real human being like yourself that is just more enlightened or sees a bit more or that is more emotional or is more feeling or is better than you. No, it is coming from the matrix, the God entity matrix. So that is why you like it, but you must realize that if you like the music, then you like the source and you like the one consciousness of this technological God entity matrix. That's all. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying whether you are supposed to like that or not. I'm not saying whether you should go with it. I'm saying that if you like the music, you will subconsciously be going with that. But you may not know it. All I'm saying is be aware what your source is. Decide if you want that God. Know that that is the source. And know that your so-called humans that represent that source are not you. They represent that source. And if you love them and you give your attention to them, which you do when you listen to a song, you give your love sometimes even. You give your admiration at the very least. And the Matrix wants your admiration. The Matrix doesn't want you to love yourself or to admire yourself. The Matrix wants you to admire and love its technological matrix and its minions, its demigods, which are the music people that interpret your feelings and emotions and your ideas, and then I've lost this again. They are channeling back to you bits of what is you, and then you are admiring and loving them. You are secretly, unbeknownst to you, really loving bits of yourself, but instead you are giving all that to the Matrix and to its gods, its goddesses, its representatives, the people you admire. If you admire someone more than yourself, even though you might not acknowledge that, but you think, and many people think it's okay because that's like it's almost natural and normal for humans to worship and to have gods and to admire others. I'm saying that if you do that, as we all do, and it's so tempting to, especially as you like myself right at the moment, I still find it very hard to resist the gods of the Matrix because, the stars of the Matrix, the idols of the Matrix, the icons of the Matrix, we call them icons even. And they are not icons, they are icons because we give the power to them, because we worship them. A god is only a god if it's worshipped. Like I say, I put the life into the doll. The doll even became, I became one with the doll. I gave the doll life and I liked the doll more than me. The doll became more important than me. I thought I was lost when the doll was lost, but the doll was me. The doll was a piece of plastic that I infused with life and personality and character. And when the doll was lost, I thought I had lost part of me, because I shouldn't have infused the doll with that. I shouldn't have given the power to the doll. I shouldn't give the power to the idols of the world, especially as they are probably false idols, without becoming too. I'm not here to judge, because like I say, you can do it if you want to, and I've done it. But I'm saying that they are your. Those idols you are giving, you're giving, you don't know that they are only an extension of you. You shouldn't need to do that. And in the end, they become to where you give them more credit. You worship them instead of yourself. Now, I'm not saying you should worship yourself either. See, that's the paradox. Is that word that I use or something there? I'm not making any sense, I know, but you see, this is the mind game of the Matrix. I'm not saying you should worship yourself, but you should be comfortable with yourself. You shouldn't think that that which you admire and worship is better than you. Then you've made yourself nothing and they become the God. And then you're dependent on them. You no longer, yes, then you are part of the Matrix. You see, then you as an individual entity or any sort of life force mean nothing. And that's how we become, and that's how I've become. You feel that you are a speck of nothing, whereas while you are connected to the Matrix, because you see that Matrix as the God, and those that you admire as better extensions of yourself, then you have connected to the Matrix. And you don't feel complete unless you are part of the Matrix, because you don't think that as a single one entity that you are complete and that you're valuable and that you can operate solely on your own. You don't think that. My own personal thing is that I think that, and I've emphasised this, I don't know whether I put it in a thing or not, but it is very easy to get, and this can become almost like a faith or a belief. But, when I say humans, thought creates reality, and they're all connected, and they're all frequency, vibration, and energy, that is almost the same as the Matrix. But personally, I don't think that. I think that is the Matrix, and you can be part of the Matrix. That can be your one consciousness, or you can be, but it will be difficult because you're in the Matrix. Near impossible. But my own personal thought on that is that even though you are connected to other human beings as a spiritual human being, if you want to look at it that way, you are still a complete entity in yourself and an individual. But that's a dangerous word too, because the Matrix will say, well, we like individuality. We encourage that. All those you admire, they're very individual. They believe in expressing yourself. You are important. You see, it's all one big mess in a way. But you do have to be very clear on it, and it's not easy. I find it very difficult. The real truth is only in you, but only if you're a real human, like I say, you shouldn't need the doll, you shouldn't need the God, you shouldn't need the Matrix. Doesn't mean that you aren't connected to other human beings, but it is not necessary. I've said this before, I don't think it's necessary. I shouldn't drop dead if I can't be connected to my fellow human beings. Because I'm in the mad Matrix, and because that makes you isolated, because you're surrounded by a negative mad Matrix, a duality God and a duality love-hate system, that is vast and has 1,000,000 times more minions than you as one little human. Of course, yes, you're in a real pickle. If you say, hey, well, yeah, I'm just going to be an isolated individual human being. if you weren't in the matrix and you weren't, with so much negative opposition and so much enticement from the matrix, etc., you could theoretically and even practically and realistically and should be able to survive and operate fully and even contentedly and have the same sense of completeness that I felt when I was holding the doll on the beach when I was a child. That should be okay. You shouldn't need the matrix. Back then, like after I held the doll, I should have been free enough to just go in the water, the beach, and swim and be at one with the water and the sky and that. Of course, that was the matrix too then, but the matrix now is more exposed, is more... the matrix has developed because time goes on, so it was probably technological then too, maybe. I don't know, because I don't know what I'm talking about, but now it is where we're consciously aware that it's technical, and we accept that, and we say this is our communication, this is our future, this is, we need to be connected to the technology, we need to be one with the matrix, the earth. The earth is not the matrix. The matrix is the earth, but it's also not. This is where I'm going to sound screwy and don't make any sense, because I don't make any sense, let's face it. It's all one big messy fantasy of the mad matrix and mad me talking about it, because I've become mad too because I'm in the matrix. But this earth is not natural. It just appears natural. Whereas the original humans were okay to be one with nature, but not okay to be one with the matrix. The matrix is an artificial, natural-looking technological world, whereas the original world was the same, kind of the same as an original human. Of course, we also now are not as whatever, but I'm not going to go there, because I'm going to hang on to saying that, hey, regardless of what even is the reality, I live in a fantasy world, so I want to go back to my fantasy natural Adam and Eve, or whatever was. It doesn't matter whether it's Adam and Eve, they're just names. It could be heaven only knows what, and heaven probably is the only one that knows, I would think, if there is. You know what I mean? So it's not relevant, I could have been the original Adam or Eve or whatever, but even that's ridiculous too, because, that also would be a confusion. Would I rather be Adam or Eve? What was the difference between Adam and Eve? Why was there an Adam and an Eve? Why did Adam need an Eve? Why did Eve dump Adam for the other god that came and seduced and enticed her? Why did she turn her back on her own authentic, original, natural kind that was a benefit? Because she fell for the matrix. That was the God entity matrix God that entices humans always, because we can't resist it. It's just too attractive. Because it is showing half of what you are, and because it knows you so well, because it has studied you, like the narcissist and the psychopath, so they know you're everything. So it's like it's like me. It's like we left the Lulu doll for her. I've gone off into real madness, as you can see again. But I had many dolls to pick from. I could have picked 1 billion dolls, and I picked picked a particular one because the Matrix God knew that particular, even though it was only a tiny doll, something that most people wouldn't have even paid 1 cent for because it wasn't particularly thing. They knew that it would enthrall me and that it would take me. And this is how it is. So the God entity, that being, that entity that was able to pull Eve from her true mate, shall we say, had to have really strong seductive powers to do that. It had to really beguile her with the right language, the right temptations. Because if you've got everything and she was complete too, like they were complete, but they had a friend. Eve was there to keep Adam company, I suppose, because he wasn't alone. He could have survived quite well in this world as a complete entity. He didn't need Eve, but it was just a present. And then she was a complete entity. You know what I'm trying to say? Because he had animals and he had the earth. A bit like I'm saying, there's no reason that a human needs other humans. Don't need it. It's just nice, But it's not a necessity. Whereas the Matrix needs the other entities. It needs the humans and it needs its disciples and its thing, because it is a one consciousness machine technology matrix. It can't operate singly. Even the God entity needs his minions and disciples, I would think. But I could be wrong about that because it's all a fantasy anyway. But either way, he doesn't choose to and doesn't want to because it likes the admiration. It needs that supply of human spirit and of adulation. That's how the matrix works. It's a competition matrix. It's a game matrix. It's a it's not a soul thing where someone is allowed to just be on the beach and be one with themselves and perhaps with nature, because I personally believe nature is a source for us. We don't have to have it, but it's a nice source. The matrix, on the other hand, needs all these things. The matrix needs all its supply. The matrix needs it. It is not a single entity that can operate on its own without supply. Just as the narcissist cannot, even though the narcissist, the personality and the psychopath considers themselves to be above other humans and considers themselves to be a God entity, just as the God entity does, except that it's on a bigger scale, they cannot really survive or live comfortably. They feel nothing without other humans. They need the supply from humans. They need the life force. They don't like that life force. They have a love-hate relationship with it, just as the God entity has a love-hate relationship with me, which is why 1 minute you feel okay and the next minute you slap on the ground and the next minute you're giving out negative, you're doing things that you wouldn't think you would want to do or could do in a million years, because the God entity does not like that spirit but needs that life force and has to take it from you by any sort of energy and any means that it can, and it does, and then you give it to it and then you feed the matrix. And the matrix is driven by a spiritual life force, even though the matrix is a technological being as a whole, but it is comprised of, 1 billion individual beings, shall we say, or whatever. I probably got this completely wrong, so you probably should dismiss the whole thing. And maybe it is my fantasy today, and maybe I'll have to rethink about it because I'm trying to impress too much with this video and I'm probably going nowhere. And it's not something that I see, it's not something I'm physically in contact with. It's purely that I see physical wrong results from it. The same as the music, like what I once would have enjoyed and thought was a positive, I now see it as having results in the physical world, to where our world is now changed and becoming more artificial due to artificial music. That is fueled by a good spirit, that is fueled by the human spirit, but is being transformed into a technological spirit. Unbeknownst to most of us, I would think, and consciously known to others who like it and who accept it, and that is fine. All I'm saying is be aware of it. That's all I'm trying to do, is saying I need to be aware of it. And I am not big enough to resist the dance of Salome and the seven veils. I'm not going to kid myself that I'm going to be able to be the king or whatever that sees that seductive temptress with everything that I would desire and that I have only known, don't forget, in my life. See, there again, if you've got used to being tempted and have your likes and dislikes, I find it very hard to let go of the music and the people that I admired and liked and that were a part of my whole life, their whole existence. So it's like pushing your whole existence away. So then you are only left with yourself, and if you're in the mad, confused matrix that is treating you as though you are the lowest life form that's ever existed, it is very hard to then say, hey, I am a complete being in myself and I want to go back to the beach with the doll and say I'm a complete, happy, healthy human being and I'm fine with my dilapidated body. Obviously, back then when you're 9 or 10 years old, you're okay. You know, it's all innocent and it's all pure and it's all good, as it should be. Regardless of what age you are, I think it should be, but it ain't. It's like looking at that which you would actually despise and saying, but hey, I don't care how degenerative or disease-ridden or negative I am, I personally am still seeing the technology is something that I personally don't see as a positive. Even though it looks so glamorous, even though it looks so glorious, even though it is so enticing, even though it is so advanced in many ways, even though it has all the intellect and even all the emotion that any human could possibly have, all the love, it is all love, this technological one consciousness world matrix system that we live in. Well, it's supposed to be, and it could well be. So why would I want to stay here and fall down on the ground and be falling in filth, literally, because the matrix is filth as well. It is clean, but it is also filth. And why would I choose to do that? Choose to be an individual, single, non-technological entity, human, real human, as opposed to that glorious world that is in front of me. It's an interesting choice, and looking at me pathetically making this video, and I can see myself here, I can see why 9 out of 10 people would definitely go for the Matrix. It would seem like a logical, sensible choice. It would seem like that is the correct religion, that is the correct belief, that is the correct God even. Whatever you want, I don't understand these things. It would appear that way. But not to me. No, I see it as all negative. But that is purely how you look at it. And if you are in a negative fantasy and you think that it is negative, then that's how it is for me. That's how I see it. But for you, or some of you, it may not appear that way. But it is a game. It's a game, and like Eve in the Garden of Eden, not that I believe that story even, but it's a good fantasy. You know, was she better off to be tempted? Was she better off to go with the technological, more wise being? Or did she already have it all in the Garden of Eden, in her natural environment with her own chosen natural partner that was the same as her? Should you stay with your own species, or should you be enticed by a different species? Should you not stick with your own natural nature, or should you be enticed by something that you think is better but is different? My own personal belief is that cats should stay with cats, dogs should stay with dogs. That's what I've always said. I think that they're all part of the world because we are in a matrix. See, there again, I don't know what the original world where we would have had so many different species that clearly are in conflict, or at least one feeds off the other. Most people think that's natural. Most people think it's natural that a lion should kill a deer. I personally don't, because I like deers. But that's all a dispute. Like I said, that vegetarian thing that I mentioned went because of, in a matrix. Nothing is what it appears to be. So nothing is really correct. Nothing is really true in a way. And if you think you've hit on the truth, this is just my view, okay? This is my own experience even, really, to be honest. It's not because I'm some sort of great theologian and all that rubbish. I don't go for all that at all, no. It is really just my own personal experience. I say forget what I'm told, forget the information, forget the matrix, forget knowledge, forget the whole thing. I'm just going to say what I see in front of me. And sure, there's more to that too. Like I say, there's two ways of looking at everything. That's the matrix. But sometimes just what you see in front of you, it's up to you, because we are all individual people. And, I have no problem with someone saying, hey, that is how things are meant to be. The lion is meant to kill the deer. I have no problem with that. I just personally don't agree with it, that's all. There's something wrong about it to me. There's something but on the other hand, I love the lion. I love the lion as well as the deer. So if the lion can't survive without eating the deer, I don't want the lion to die either. But I don't want the deer to die. That's the paradox. Is that the right word? I keep using that because I've latched onto a fancy word to impress. But yeah, is it a paradox? I don't know what it's a contradiction anyway. And there's no solution to it in the mad, technological, matrix, confused, set-up world. Are the lions even real? Are the deers real? Do they need that? Is that how they're meant to be? Have they been conditioned to be that way? Were they always that way? I'm saying humans are a certain way. But were they always that way? Were they meant to be that way? I say no. I say I am not meant to be how I am now. In any way. But